Okay, so Control Shift R, hard refreshes. Okay, so let's get started with today's class. I will be gone 2 weeks after today. I fly out on the weekend, and I won't be back until the week of the 27th, maybe the first week of September. There I will announce the new challenge for the community, a bit more festive and seasonal. Our challenges on this time of year are really, really fun and interesting, from like Halloween themed to holiday themed. So this is going to be our last challenge for the summer. Portrait Studio is on sale this Friday at midnight, Thursday at midnight for Friday. So the sale will start Thursday at 1 a.m. And it'll be 50% off until the 23rd at also midnight. This is just my way of leaving you guys with something, because I won't be streaming, and along with last week and this week being only one stream, I'm pretty much not really heavy streaming for a good month. So I am sorry about that. My health has not been the best, but I am feeling better. And I hopefully will start normally if I'm not overbooked with private students on the first week. Last week of August, but if I am, then I will start on the 3rd of September at 5 p.m. Eastern for our next meetup. If you guys want some homework to do between now and then, that's cool. I can make a post, just reply, or if my mods can remind me to run a poll real quick at the end of our session today, which might be a full 2-hour session, who knows. I have a lot of stuff to look through, and there we'll run a poll on what kind of studies you guys want to have complete for me on our first day back or second day back. First day back, I might do some of the stuff I didn't do in the last week, so any posts that I missed, and then the Thursday the 5th, I will probably look at that homework. So if you guys want to run a quick poll, if you guys want eye studies, nose studies, anything that I haven't looked at in a while in my channel, any lesson topic that you feel like I've missed. So if you like Portrait Studio, by the way, and you know a friend who might want to use it, my brush sets, my whole bundle of all 4 brushes will also be 50% off. So if you guys want, or maybe 30% off, I really don't know. So if you guys know anyone who wants my brushes and wants them for a significantly decreased price, they will all be on sale for 2 weeks starting Friday. As for today's class theme, the theme was Luminescent Humanoid Elemental. So it's a glowing elemental made of the element that is in the shape of a human, so humanoid-ish. And it is supposed to be a dark light environment. I posted a couple of references. This is just 2 of them. Reddit is stupid. It doesn't show all of them, or at least for me, it's not showing all of them. The twist is that the empty background for the elemental design must represent a dark light environment. This invites you to attempt a kind of luminescence in the materials used to design the character. Anything can glow, but you should not drown out detail with overuse of white or excessive contrast. The elemental can be both male and female, and cannot be an animal or creature of any kind. Must be a full color but empty colored background. I'd love to see a wide range of colors in this design with swatches prepared in your mood boards. No monochromatic character designs. So a lot of these details have already been broken. A lot of these guidelines haven't been followed already. I see a lot of them have broken that. As with every assignment, I must see gesture experimentation in your blueprinting, as well as any references collected for the mood board. No boring T-pose stances. The gesture must reflect the nature of the elemental. As with every character design, your character must be a combination of gesture, expression, and costume with all components, and all components must reflect the character's written narrative. So what are they essentially? What is their personality? What is their story? What is their role? The written narrative must be a paragraph long and must be handed in with your character. I do not want a reproduction of an elemental we've seen in games and other media. I also don't want to see a rocky fire golem, nor do I want to see a same old ghostly female with curves and a see-through dress. Think outside the box and bring in plant life, chemical reaction, combustion, color range, or other units of life you can use as the inspiration for the elemental, as long as it emits light somehow. Elementals can be anything. glowing gold material or gem elemental, not necessarily specific or limited to basic magical elements like Aristotle's elements, fire, water, earth, and air. You can have a leaf elemental or sun elemental, but not specific to fire, like not a fire elemental, and that's it. Purple electricity or anything that glows is cool. A worm-like humanoid that has a glowing bioluminescent anatomy. Fucking fly is not leaving me alone. I have added both inspirational and reference images for you to use. Please use those. I'm going to be looking out for some cues from these references. And that's it. So it was a lot to go over. I'm going to start off with this one, which is exactly what I didn't want. A ghostly character in a dress. Let's see if her... So I understand what you were going for. I read the brief, and that she's a person who died at sea and then became the element of the ocean, which is really cool as a backstory. Sorry, my chair is stuck on something. But how can we make her look more ocean-esque? So something that you can do, which is messing around with waves, which is probably something you can predict. Just so that she looks like she's like, you know, part of the water, is just giving us something where she has some kind of water pattern in her silhouette, something that you could have explored in your silhouette stage. You're also, the glowing aspect of the character is not really stemmed throughout the character's inside, so we kind of have this really, really dim core everywhere, and that would have been really cool of you to kind of show us where she may be, all the like the magic may be emitting from. So what I'm doing here is I'm just darkening the character in their environment. So the darker the environment that envelops them in certain areas, the more significant the glow will seem in certain areas. And if you guys haven't watched my video on subsurface scattering, go watch that. It's an old video, but it definitely gets to the point. You see, I'm radially feathering away at the edges of the character and leaving one core stem of the character that is luminescent. So the key to getting a good successful result in this challenge is to balance dark and light a lot, and know that, you know, you paint a lot with the negative space. A lot of you didn't glow enough, a lot of you didn't darken enough. And it's because, you know, maybe you don't have enough material studies behind you so that you can mess around with it. Subsurface scattering is a combination of saturation and illumination. So sponge tool to saturate and dodge tool to illuminate. And what we will get as a result are these really nice explosions of contrast that represent the strength of the light. And you have these like sinews of water. You might want to look up some textures that help you represent the waves and the ripples of a water reflection a little bit better. I'm just going to duplicate the layer and darken with like a blue, maybe multiply with a really rich blue, and then just delete away at what I don't want, just so we have some transition. And then I'll delete at what's remaining. Just try to focus on like the heart of the character, the glowy eyes, some of the sinewy kind of presence of the water. And the outline of certain areas that are not directly exposed. I'm going to just correct some of these levels real quick, just to give us some exposure back. And then one really big thing that you missed, which I was going to mention earlier, was, where are you? Throwing in that general glow of an object in a dark light environment. So that was a big one, so I'm expecting that. And some of the criteria that I've prepared is, does it look like an elemental? Does it glow? And is it original? I can't say this design is original, but I can say that it does look like an elemental. It did not glow. Alright, so this is a big part of today's lesson, is that, did it glow? Actually, I bring it back to normal. And just delete at wherever we have the most important contrast that carries the image. If the eyes are part of the profile, then we have to give them some illumination and saturation as well. She does look angry, which I like. And I worked with this student for a while, so she's definitely mastered her expressions. Something else you could be doing is just, something as simple as combining the glow of the eyes. So I feel like I lost the eyes here with the saturation. The glow of the eyes with, what's happening up here in the hair. So that could be one way to make this look a lot more original. And maybe it's like a trailing effect with the eyes, just to help with that ghostliness. Another thing you could do is sneak in some rib cage, so to show that she was once a human. And just show a couple of indications here and there of a rib cage, and then seam that into the rest of the portrait. And then with darken, I'll continue the negative, positive space in there, so the actual rib cages. Rib bones, and then just blend away seamlessly. Okay, so the glow was one really vital part, and then there's the lack of water. Reading as water. So hopefully this has helped with that, but if it hasn't, then you're gonna have to go back and try to think of another way to incorporate those. It's looking a lot like a dress and less like it's a water material. It's basically a really glorified material study, this challenge. I'm also going to blur away some of these edges here so that the bottom half of the character design isn't drawing away from the top half, and I want it to look like it's actual water that's twisted upward. So some of that magical element has been twisted up involuntarily. Can't see the comments yet. Please keep things in topic to today's class. And then something else you could do is just illuminate the edges ever so slightly. Just to, not so much outline, just to show where we have some extra form, and then blend inward. These are all ways to kind of enhance the behavior of the material. So we worked a little bit on character, touched on a little bit of everything. Shit. It's all about saturating the dark spots to get that subsurface scattering. That's pretty much the key. So we're saturating all the shadows to achieve that feeling of a glowing character. The hair, it's really boring. I've seen 1,001 characters with hair that swings around in one big S shape. It's not an original gesture at all. And I think you'd achieve more by giving her like a bald head. That, like in the Atlantis character that got possessed by like the god spirits or whatever, if you guys have watched Atlantis. It did a lot to make her actually look like she's changed shape. And so we can see some of the hair behind, and I'll even throw in some lasso wisps for the hair in the original shape he went for. But we still have that baldness at the top, which makes it seem like she's lost, you know, a lot of her beauty to her rage or whatnot. So this girl was killed by a loved one at sea, and so the sea engulfed her, and she, instead of dying at sea, her rage kept her alive, which is a cool story. And she became a part of it. So just to complete the stem of her spine, try to show off some more anatomy, maybe even some nostril cavity, a little bit of the bone of the collarbone, like an x-ray, and just look at what throwing a lot of these components back into shadow does for the areas that are not in shadow. It really gives them value and their glow. And I'm just going to maybe dodge and color dodge. It's kind of like a more of that x-ray look. And then just throw in the glow. The thing you could do is kind of like the fog of the ocean, just floating around her. I feel like this area flattens the piece a bit much. And then one last level drop, just to be sure. Okay, so this looks like a pretty decent representation of what you were going for, like a decent step in the right direction, but it still needs more work. But let me show you the before, which was pretty, it did look like water, I guess because you had waves. So let me move back to your original color palette. But we're treating it more as if she's made of the water, a little bit less of that upward look and a lot more glow to the character. And I'd go even further with the glow. I'd go for something like this, but because I warned against that, I'd bring this back down to its original and just move in this direction so the character is actually luminescent. I'll move back before I change the levels and get rid of this excess right here. Okay, so a little bit more glow, a little bit more intensity, which is what I'm looking for, which is what you should be doing if this was some kind of game design. We don't want a character that looks like they're floating around in the daytime. We want intense saturation. We want a glowing bioluminescence. Subsurface scattering requires a lot. Photoshop is crashing. And I'm just going to load all these in and go through them one by one and see what I can change. Water splashes, exactly. The wave I initially recommended would be great. I think Photoshop's taking a poop. Is it not responding? Okay, are you gonna load everything though? Why? Do you just not feel like it? Oh, okay. So we have some of these that are not following the brief properly because of a very specific reason. They're basically figure studies with like additional cosplay type add-ons. The core of the challenge is that they're elementals. They're supposed to look like they're made of the stuff. So for this character to look like they're a fragrance, some of these look like you guys just really didn't plan it. You were doing a study and then you just turned it into a theme for the challenge. So throwing a couple of little dusty wisps here is not going to make it read like she's a fragrance elemental. You have some mushrooms growing off of her, but that's it, unless the mushrooms are related to... I'm not going to really read through all of them. I'm just hoping you guys, because I don't have time, I'm just hoping you guys use that in your favor. So one thing that you could do to get rid of the feeling like it's a human is to get rid of the legs and then replace the entire color palette in some other. And then using lighten, I'm going to get rid of all the shadows so it doesn't look like an opaque substance. It looks like she's dust in the shape of a human. So all the shadows here are disappearing, so she's slowly starting to read like she's made of dust. And then of course there's the textural aspect of it. We're literally dusting away at the shape of the body, so it's as if it's made of that material. But this is just the early stages into making this work. You have to really go in there with a brush and apply these dusty aspects here. And this perfume. To the body to make it feel like it's actually made of dust. So it's hardly there. This is a human. It's not really a humanoid. We're just getting rid of a lot of these edges that make it feel like it's a character that is opaque. It's more of a character that is made up of this stuff, and then you will have fit the criteria. So getting a yellowy pink for the highlights. Is going to help us with the same texture brush create the feeling like they're catching the light as dust. And it's just about sacrificing the right amount. Just stippling in that dust of the perfume. And as if she's a genie, she has an origin, a shapelessness towards the bottom. And I'm just smudging inward. All these little additional rocks and pieces you threw on, again, it's just reading as cosplay. It's not reading as the material is what they're made of. Again, it's just a material study, this whole challenge is. It's not supposed to be about showing off your figure study skills, but good job anyway. Okay, so that should help you know where to start. And then for the fun stuff, we've got, and let me crop this out. We've got the level drop and raising that. We've got dodge tool, and we're choosing certain areas here to glow. So the material and then the glow right after that. Sponge tool. And I'm just bringing in saturation where I feel like it could be, where it could benefit the piece, and then I can bring in a glow right after that. I'm going to drop the levels some more. I want to lose some of her shape. See how I'm losing shape? I want to try a little bit more of that. And then just snake the rest of that down. And if she is a chunky lady, then we're gonna just use more of the dust to help with that. saturating the outsides, finding these pockets to saturate, some focal areas, somewhere at the top here, and just continuing that dust. So now again she's reading as an elemental, and color palette I would say be sweeter kind of towards this side to read as an Aphrodite type of elemental. Perfuming up the place like a concubine or something like that. And then some more scattered texture towards the bottom. And then that bloom, we can just do all kinds of ways to achieve that, do all kinds of things to achieve that bloom there. We could use soft light on a different color. It doesn't have to be, I mean, blue would look like a really cool glow outside of the character. So you're giving them their glow just on the outskirts, and that kind of looks more like perfume. And then a whole new layer, low opacity, just to throw in the glow. And that is a definite step in the right direction when it comes to, they're supposed to be made of the material. Okay, and then for this one, it's supposed to be, oh whoops, I didn't do a before and after, my bad. Abu, do you mind getting me the before real quick for me and sending it to me on Discord? So we have this piece here, which again doesn't look like the character is made of moonlight. So I'm just going to get rid of your little brief. Thank you for writing it. And I'm going to crop the piece so we have a better idea of the space we're working from. Okay, and okay, so they're supposed to be made of the moonlight, and they have a little creature. We're really getting the best stuff over here, so what I'm literally going to do is just get rid of that. Her pose is terrible. This isn't Vogue. This isn't Haute Couture, so we're getting rid of that pose. And open original. So my bad about the before. So before, after. So we have a bit more of a dusting. If you don't like the old, if you feel like you've lost some dimension, you're gonna have to bring in another way to make the character feel a little bit more vibrant. So just like before, we have that stem. I'll get to the other one in a sec. That stem, that central kind of energy source of glow in the character, traveling here through her thyroid, which doesn't seem to be working, and up into her face, maybe nostrils. And this way, we kind of have that glow, and maybe on the outskirts. Right over here, a bit more of a glow. If that's something you feel like you need to add in, and you just work from that. If you want to work in layers, maybe the breasts are an opaque layer on top, and we have the entire lower half of her body in that glow stage. That's another way to approach it. And then you just keep layering on top. Her hand is in front of that. Her rib cages are coming through. It's really just to show that she's made of that material. But if you don't want it to be a translucency or an X-ray effect, you're gonna have to, you know, find another way to define it. Over here we have a very black and white kind of work at the top. And what I want to do is kind of correct the anatomy at the same time. Bring in some interesting way to make the character feel like they are made of this material, this moonlight, like they're made of moonlight. So they were supposed to be a moonlight character. So again, I'm just creating the feeling like they're made of it, like a little droplet of light that's animated. And we have parts of this that are not going to glow, so they're receding, and parts that will. And one big thing is that you've made white, you've used white everywhere. Yeah, I felt that comment too. My thyroid is the reason I am sick today. My thyroid is the reason why I've been sniffly, and the reason why I can't lose weight. So we're darkening deliberately around here. And as you can see, as we darken, things look more realistic. And that's how they are in real life. Not everything glows, not everything is excessive. The neck is massive, and you're losing a lot of that feminine read. Male or female, as I said before, and not a creature. It's supposed to be a humanoid. It's a very, very complex topic we have today. And I don't want to, I think you're overdoing the detail on her face. She kind of looks like what I imagine Maris from Frasier to look like. Kind of like facelift. And a lot of that light from above is coming down on her face. So we have some areas catching the light. But we have one big shadow off the crescent, which is giving her a bit more intrigue. So again, from a distance, it's reading really, really nicely. And then an even bigger shadow on the lower half of her face. And then what I'm going to do is just expand the top and shrink the bottom a little bit, because she doesn't look like she is feminine in that, you know, her shoulders are huge and females have smaller shoulders, so she wasn't really doing any of that. She didn't have those cues. And then same thing with her owl. I'll use liquify for her owl. He kind of looks like his name is Harold. I'm just expanding the face and then giving him the same shape. And then what I want to do is make the entire moonlit texture feel milky, like it feel kind of strong, and we're losing a lot of detail. So I'm just going to use lighten layer to correct some of these kind of excessive detail. We really shouldn't be, she's a light source, so we really shouldn't be seeing all that much detail. Detail requires midtones, maybe a little bit on her face, but as I bring in this lighten layer that gets rid of these drops, and they're not excessive drops, they're acceptable if this was a human, but because it's a floating specter or some kind of elemental specter, we want to show that, you know, there isn't that much dimension that requires all these stages of grayscale. And sponge tool, I mean my smudge brushes, which you can get this Friday on half off, is just doing this job perfectly. So I need to manually get rid of some of these indications, as well as, like, you know, smudge them away, as well as correcting the contrast myself, or letting the brush automatically, I guess, correct them with lighten mode. Same thing with this boy here. I want to get rid of some of his detail just to show that he is also made of moonlight. And moonlight, again, doesn't really work unless there's darkness to make it visible. So bringing in this darkness, this lack of definition in certain areas, this receding into the distance is making this piece really work. And we're getting that glow effect. And then I'm just going to get Dodge Tool and let Dodge Tool do some of this stuff. And then this main crown that she's wearing may have most of the contrast. I'm going to let some of that contrast share with the rest. And the rest is just a really wispy kind of placement here. And the arm, the other arm, I guess what we could do with it is something a little bit more of a stance, kind of, maybe something this way. It looks a little bit more spindly. No, I don't like it. I really don't miss the arm. I mean, I don't feel like she needs an arm. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I mean, if she needs an arm, it'll manifest kind of deal. Maybe a little presence of it like a sleeve instead of an arm. And I don't want to have any like flame-like shape. Radial shading is your friend here. If any of you want to repeat these corrections, I'm using radial shading to create the shapes that I'm using. Love the black eyes. Really great design choice there. I don't see any reason why they should glow. Your nostrils are pointing in the wrong direction. Even getting rid of the nostrils might be a benefit to the drawing. But just let me finish with the face a little. The black eyes are a really, really nice addition. And I'm just going to make them droop a little bit more and work upward. For some reason, it just seems like a right choice to have the eyes as black. And I don't want any puckered Instagram lips, so I'm just going to give them a bit more realism and that they don't look like they have Botox up there in the one in the sky. And giving her more of that Asian look, which kind of just makes sense because the Asian culture has so much moon mythology, which is really cool. Again, I'm sensing all of these different aesthetics coming through. I'm just gonna darken these extra eyelids you have. Just keep things simple where there is shadow. We really don't need all that excessive detail. There's so much to be done in muted values and less excessive shading. And we're just letting the element glow in its own way. We're just kind of letting it glow. And I'm going to use dodge tool on midtones, just really cool for getting some midtones out and getting a glow to happen. And again, I'm trying to get rid of some of these defining kind of textures. We lose a lot of definition when we're doing a texture, so this should remind you next time you're doing like a fur coat or something, you shouldn't need that much definition to make it happen. And this weird kind of sporadic glow that sometimes combines and sometimes doesn't, I really like that too. And you chose black and white, which is easy to work with. I mean, if you were doing moonlight, though, you don't really need any other colors, to be honest. One really cool thing you can do, which is a jump, and I mean, we're here to experiment, is darken everything but the crescent. So I'm just going to erase away at the crescent and then decide how much I'm getting rid of everything else. Which is, I think, a really nice touch. But I'm seeing it in frames. Like if this was a movie, at times she'd glow and reveal more of herself. At times, like the Cheshire Cat, she'll just be just a moon and then come slowly into view. But sometimes she just barely is there. Sometimes I really do imagine things as a video instead of a still critique. I like to imagine how they're floating and stuff. As for the bird, there are other ways to portray the bird. Maybe he's sitting on her head in between the crescent. Also, the shape of the crescent, you could have gone for another type of shape, a more complete sphere, a more thin crescent. I think the shape of the crescent is fine right now, but you could have gone for something that's a little bit more anatomically correct in relation to the moon's actual crescent silhouette. Not the actual shape of the moon, but it is just a headdress. So before cropped it, you really weren't doing much with those legs, and after we have more of a real presence. I just like adding more glow in the after. Okay, and that arm, that wasn't doing much. That little dress wasn't doing much. Made her look a little bit more feminine, less old, and that upper body shape was a bit too strong. And if you want even more glow, go for it. But that's technically what we should be doing with this challenge, is having a glow, make it look like they're made of that material. Okay, up next is this one. This is really cool. I like that kind of dusty texture emerging. I think some of the major problems that you have here is just the shape of the body. It looks like a really rudimentary stick figure. The expression as well. You're erasing half the face with what looks like a like he's made of that material, so it's like he's got a very thin layer of moss and his insides are made of this material. You've also given him a very circular head shape, which is making him look like he's a 6-year-old, a bald 6-year-old. So if you want it to look a little bit more masculine, you have to make the head more square and the eyes more dark. The shape of the mouth as well as the expression are a little bit exaggerated. And if you really want to go for like a kind of dislocated jaw, you could completely dislocate it and give us more of that look here. He also looks like he can see, which isn't something we want to do when we do these mindless elementals that are basically summoned by wizards or exist in their own way. Kind of give him an emptiness or a possession. He's definitely aggro. He's definitely not happy. I'm going to give him a stronger cheekbone to work with that zombie look. And that looks good. And then we've got this very feminine physique, which I'm sure you didn't intend. So I'm just going to close his hip width. You can keep some of that skeletal look to his body, like these bugs, these rocks have eaten away at his flesh. That super skinny body, massive forearm it just reminds me of a lot of kind of like olden day cartoons. So you just got to give him the same density, body density everywhere else. Just make him look the same thinness. And then the feet, which are humongous, that make no sense for them to be that big unless he was a massive giant and you're deliberately trying to show how much of a giant he is. We really don't need them. So a lot of these are just anatomy problems. I think you're not familiar enough with human anatomy so that you can stylize it. Just trying to give the feet the same kind of treatment. And then after all this, his belly button survives. All this decapitation and mutilation and whatever it is that's happening to him. Because of these rocks, his belly button is still there. So get rid of that. It's kind of cheesy. And I'm also going to shrink the eyes because I just don't want it to read as a child. And I'll make the eyes more open. For the teeth, I don't know. I'm just gonna go on with the painting. So before, I'm gonna enlarge. After, before, I kind of oversized the head again, so I'm just gonna shrink the head all together as one big motion. Whoops, wrong tool. To make him look a little bit more strong, and that his body's so big, his head is that small. So let's crop some of this excessive space we have everywhere and talk about the glow. I think the only thing left that's missing is just the glow, which is as simple as this. Very simple representation of them as a light source. And when we have a light source that's a single color, we really should have other surrounding material attain that color. So let me see if I can color dodge it. So I'm just going to bring in that negative space blue you have, and I'm going to let some of that blue kind of sit on top of his body, just to show how that blue is shining on. And light sources are supposed to just straight up line the sides of anything that they're on. So we should have more light here on the sides, which I'll erase along the z-axis in a second. We have the actual color that's surrounding the character. Oopsie. Let me get rid of that belly button. Flatten the image. And just start getting rid of some of these areas here. I also don't feel like he's made of this. He's just been infected by it. What you could do is give his skin a little bit more translucency by using color layer and letting some of those gems kind of jutting through, showing how their color kind of, again, with that stem, are just moving through him. And they're kind of under his skin. I like these glowing bits here. So I would work off those a little bit more. And just have one thing, the superior glow. Maybe if he was like a champion or some kind of character in a game that can attack, he definitely has a lot of his attacks coming out of his claws, since they're still the biggest aspect of him. I don't feel like we need a mouth. I feel like a closed mouth would do a lot more to make him look less like a minion. So he'll look a lot more in charge. But if he is a minion, keep his mouth open. But as you can see, he looks more scary, more doomsday, if his mouth is a little bit more like it'll open once he has something to say. Where I shouldn't have said doomsday, because doomsday is just one big joke. One big minion. I don't think he's capable of advanced dialogue. Well, I'm trying to show that this character is. And then wherever we have shadow, we're still working with a primary light source. We're still darkening things according to that light source. We still have to have some reason here. And I'm shading that character along it. And then I'm going to bring in a primary light source and just show where it does sit. Maybe it even casts a shadow off this body of rock on his head. Maybe this is a cast shadow as well. But yeah, back to that primary, which could be a yellow-white. Yeah, it's not something that'll interrupt the light environment, but definitely enough that we can bring in another source of light here to make him look more realistic. But definitely not strong enough to outdo these glows. And then I'm just going to let some of that sit over here. And then with Dodge Tool, or yeah, I'm just going to let some of those gems, wherever they have shadow, because they're glowing, they wouldn't really allow a lot of shadow to sit in between the gems, would it? Because that's all glowing outward, so it's going to illuminate outward. And then we've got color layer here to bring some of that blue in. I don't like that all the gems glow equally, so I'm just going to get the universal value and then just throw some of those gems in the distance. I don't want them all to look like they're as strong as every other gem, because again, we're weakening to help promote the feeling that some are more strong than others. And then overall, I would just darken the piece a lot more. Bring some color correction up here. I'm sure that color that is inside him is also glowing through his eyes if they're one big cavity. And then all of these are bringing in their color. Using color layer, I'm just going to allow it to create like a hue of glow around him. And if you have access to your layers, which I'm sure you do, you can do a better job, a more clean job than I have. I also don't like how he's leaning away from the center line. It makes him look more in command when he is standing properly. Okay, so going backward. Before, again, kind of looks like a minion, not really a character that's made of this stuff, more like a character, a zombie that has been infected by it. And the after, it looks like, just trying to get a better after, where the only change is the character. Before, after. We're darkening, adding illumination, adding another color for the color palette. And I would make these rocks look a lot more threatening. Right now they don't seem to look like they hurt. So we'll erase them with a blue first. So we still have that blue, and then I'll follow up with a shadow. So you could go back and make some of these a bit more dangerous looking. And it's just about getting rid of that extra curve. Okay, and I recommend this with all of them. That was a very menacing expression he had before, and you were trying to pull off the danger only through the expression. You really weren't getting it, I guess, through everything else in the design. So I guess that's why you relied so much on the expression to make him feel dangerous. All you really had to do was just correct some of the shapes. The claws look good. I'd actually go into Liquify and give the claws some more sharpness. So all those teeth have now become his claws. That angry expression has now become the shape of everything around him. Oh, come on. So a lot more danger. And he looks like a boss. Maybe some shadows here. Okay, and that for that light lower half, I mean, it's okay, I don't mind it so much, but we have more glow, we have more subsurface scattering, we have more shared colors, and the gems don't feel like they're a separate part from the body. The body isn't reading as a female with hips, it's reading more as like a floating boo or Majin Buu, which is really cool. Okay, we have this, I have a lot to look through, so buckle down, y'all. I'll try to get through them as quick as possible. So we have this character here, which is reading as way outside their perspective. You don't even have any perspective on the face. They're pouring something down, but they're not paying attention to it, which isn't good. So when something looks down, we see more of the forehead. And then the breasts and all of that. I think you're trying to make it look like the character is pouring from their chest, and then they're kind of like glowing. So, yep, you guessed it. I'm getting rid of the legs. Legs aren't doing much at all. I mean, they can still be there, but they need to float up. Not sure why she's pouring into her legs. Her legs might be coming from this direction, and then, you know, you have some of the legs floating this way. And then the arms could be doing something else. So they're pouring, and I think that's about it. Which is cool. Like, I think they kind of mold their own weapons, if I read correctly last time. But the arms, unless the arms are part of that pouring effect, get rid of them and have a different gesture. And we have the top of the head, and they are like a golem of sorts. They have horns. But apart from the horns being super simplistic, there's really nothing else telling us of what they are, essentially, like what they're made of. If they're made of lava, then they are lava, so they should have more indication of that lava everywhere else. But nothing is really there doing that. So I'm getting rid of the distracting points, and I'm just going to try to focus on the piece as with the main points, which is something you guys can do as well. Remember those red dots I used to indicate, you know, what's important and where everything is positioned. So right now we got rid of a lot so that we could focus on the main anatomy, I guess, or the main science of the character, which is this lava coming through. So lava is got a lot more color in it than all that, or magma. It glows with a lot more redness. So you need to decide on which color you're using, because you're using this red here everywhere, but an orange there. Start off with one color and see what color is adjacent to it. So you could go for a more purpley magma, or you could go for a more yellow golden color. I'm going to try to mess around with both. But we have to stick to warm or not warm. We can't have cool and warm. So before I added those, I should have... It'd be cool if she was pouring from her legs. So she's female, so we're getting that read. So let's see. She's like pouring from her legs, so her legs could be leading us to that shape. And then she could be doing this kind of like ballerina thing with her hand, with her arms, like, oh my god, I'm pouring down. But it's just more like, just trying to do the gesture myself. So we've got elbow, and then like that. And just like a really proud kind of dance move. Starting way high, like all the way up there. And then we have like the shape of one leg in front of another pouring down. So you may have considered this and ignored it. I'm not sure why you would have ignored it, but to make it seem like she's pouring down, we need that downward shape. So we're going to lose a lot of the lower half of the hourglass, which is okay. And like she's got this super like crusty, rocky upper part that she's pouring from, which you can start working off of, so she could have more of an upward shape to her horns. And instead of everything moving down, we could start having things moving up for a change. Just starting to come together. And that along with her hands and some like spindly, sinewy kind of pouring effect. And sometimes fluids split while they're pouring, so you could mess around with that as well. And you could really show how the lava is just directly coming, or the magma is just directly coming down. So when you're talking elemental, you're talking about a suspended character, a character made of this stuff, a character that interacts with their world very differently. This also happened in the Floral Humanoid Challenge. You don't really need legs in the traditional definition of legs. And I'm just going to give her the glow she needs. Oh, flatten midtones. And just darken the lower half. Come to think of it, I don't think I'll be able to finish all of these. And the glow is kind of moving upward. And we have this really nice hot white coming through with this purple, which I kind of am liking. So it might help you decide what to do with the rest of the character. They're still very hot. They're purple hot, you know. Or you can go for like a blue hot, which definitely looks hot. And you can still bring in some of that purple just on the outsides of the character. And like that, it's moving up. And then we're combining the two. So these are just different ideas. You didn't have to go for a traditional magma color palette. She's still pouring. And there are other things you can do to make her look like she's pouring. Maybe droplets. God, this fucking fly is here for an art class. And then we're just casting off a great deal of this in shadow, like her chest is casting a shadow, and this is all just one really strong glow moving down. And maybe her arms are creating, you know, their own little dripping effect. Shoot. Okay, so you can still work with it. She's very tall, so we're definitely getting the feeling that she's pouring something. And then the eyes, of course, need to respond to that same pattern, just to keep the upper half of the canvas involved in the focal point. Okay. She looks like your teacher when you say you didn't finish your homework. But again, now that we have all our values in place, you can go back to your traditional magma look. Because the values are in such good place, we're really seeing a lot of fun results with the colors. This is also really cool. I like the blue, but this is legit. And that it's actual colors of magma. Okay, so before, very dull colors, unusual body type. Head was huge, tiny little crown at the top. Legs also, again, yet again, in another design, legs were doing nothing. After, you could do a lot more with your designs. And if these are light sources, if these are glowing like combustion or lava or fire or sun elemental, this means that they are legitimate uses or legitimate excuses for using no man's land values. If it's just one big lava chain, you're gonna need no man's land values. Beautiful job on your research, just beautiful. This is Nathan's, one of my students, Alpha Nath, and it's one of my favorite pieces. It's because I love the way you created depth into the distance. You shaded every little mushroom. One thing I really want to see is just more of that inner glow of the mushroom. Just every mushroom has like a main eye of the stem. I'm just really softly touching the centers with the dodge tool. And I'll go back and see whether or not I escaped kind of outside of the focal line. But that's definitely adding a more realistic representation of how these mushrooms glow. And since they're the only light source, it explains a lot why they're reaching so far for us to bring in this no man's land value. And then the stems of the mushroom aren't really where all of this light is coming from, so I'm dipping that down a little bit into some shadow. Because this was all about the mushrooms, I really wanted I wanted to see you do a lot more with the mushrooms. Not overdo them, because their simplicity is just beautiful, and this is really one of the most amazing pieces that we've seen today. These are the changes I would have come to if you had done less well. Not that anyone today did not well, but I just don't want to see, you know, with the mushrooms, I just don't want to see a simple silhouette of a mushroom. I want to see you try to bring in more depth to the mushroom's anatomy. And I did not load in shit. Edit toolbar. I did not load in sharpen. I like sharpen. Where are you? Big triangle. Oh, I did. Oh. Okay. And I'm just sharpening along the mushrooms. I love the design for this character here. You do need to see, we do need to see how the glow of the mushrooms is revealing this part. So I'm actually grabbing mushroom glow and throwing it on that far side of the bark, which I'm sure you did as well. It's just not enough. And I'm letting it kind of work as a cast shadow. So I'm just gonna do it really roughly, but just trying to show you where that cast shadow would be. Somewhere there. Actually like all the way up here. So you need to go in there and redetail that arm so that we're representing this cast shadow. I like how you chose believable kind of greens for the dark environment. One thing about this part, why it's so charming, is it gets to be dark everywhere. So something you could do is, I'm just going to leave this there. Yeah, is just darken the whole piece. And just literally only allow the main areas to glow in the original 100%. And that way you get more strength coming off of them. I think this whole area here doesn't have a glow to the mushrooms. And then really thinking about my form studies now, just allowing like the half of everything here to glow. And I'll bring in a moonlight color for the other halves. So a bluish pale value for all the other parts, just shining in from above. Just for everything else that isn't showing. And that'll kind of help not allow you to overdo the green everywhere or just make it look too visible in the night. Because technically it wouldn't, we don't take our pictures at nighttime because it's just not visible. And when you try to force a painting to look visible at night, we're not going to believe it because we've never seen anything in our whole lives that clearly at night, unless there was some other secondary light source nearby. So just to make things look more atmospheric, we need a little bit more of a physics involved. And then there's just the glow of the mushrooms, which we don't have enough of. But I love this piece. So a big congratulations to Nath. Which is what I call him. So I will be selecting some of these for the competition, for the contest, for the poll, the community poll. And the winner will get some stuff. I've finally been able to do this because enough of you have submitted that I can actually choose. Instead of just choosing only the people who submitted, I can choose winners. If these ones here are, yeah, and then I'll upload the results for you guys later. So maybe before I leave for my vacation, I'll be able to figure out a good place to bring in the poll from. Okay. But I love this tree spirit. I'm going to illuminate under him. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1.5. Just adding more as I. So the things get dimmer the further into the distance they move. And something really cool you can do is just show how his feet have even penetrated the ground and making it glow inside out. So the grass is kind of glowing from beneath. Just like that. The head is cool, but it looks a little bit like that bad guy from Star Wars. I would maybe invite you to try something else with his skull. Maybe actually go for full on deer skull. But I love this design. I really would love to see it in a movie. So before, I like the glow before as well, but a little bit more hint and indication here. But there wasn't much to improve on. You've already done so well. I think that blue might help with the environment if you had to make this into an illustration. Beautiful job. All right, this one is really cool. I like it. This is really similar to something I would have done myself. Big change right off the bat is the background wasn't dark enough. And then we have the glow, which I'm going to try. No, it's not going to work. So, yeah, it's not going to work. Maybe I could do something crazy, which is image, adjustment, invert, and then channels. And then, holy shit. And then lasso it all down. And then select all. And then select the bottom layer. Control C. And then filter, blur, Gaussian blur. The crap out of it. And now we have a glow. Don't ask me how I did that. I do not have the patience to go through that again. I should have probably made it dark before blurring. So I should have unlocked the layer. Oops. Brought in black and then filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I guess the background is just this stubborn So you just needed a glow. And I'm just trying to decide how much. I inverted it with invert. I made a new layer, and then I selected all the channels. It selects all the white by pressing down on Shift, I think, to select all the channels. And then I deleted to delete all the white, and I was left with nothing but the shape of the character, and which means I didn't have to lasso. And then I separated the character and deleted the layer that I had inverted because I don't need it. And yeah, now I don't have the character lost, and I still have a glow for them. That's really all you needed. You just needed to darken and give them a glow. Everything else was done so beautifully. I love this character. You just didn't have a glow to them, and I didn't want to draw it in and get rid of your detail. So before, after, it's literally all you needed. I'm going to darken just a bit more. Just bring in that electricity. But again, it's always cooler when it is a animated scene. It's just going to look like electro. Okay, so I'm going to try to make the rest of my critiques like this. Okay, similar situation. You guys are afraid of your no man's land values. Objects that glow, demand it, or else they don't look like they glow. One problem with that is that if I let you guys, you know, do what you want to do with your contrast, you won't, you're not going to be classy with it. You're going to be cheesy with it. So, meaning, don't let everything glow. Literally, some of these little dudes here don't even have to glow. It's just us being a little bit more picky with the way we've patterned the glow. We need both of those plates so that when it does happen, it matters. I love how you created the indication of an eye without actually drawing the eye, which is really hella cool. One thing we can do, now watch this, is decrease lightness. We're going to get a dull vision of all the lights, right? But replace that with saturation to get all your vibrance back. Which is really cool for this interesting character you have here. And then I'm just going to spot saturate. And just bring in some really, really cool, but you know, nothing's going to saturate better than Control U. And then one thing you can do for gem characters is bring in a universal, which just means a straight white value on soft brush. Boop. Just, I mean, it's not dark enough everywhere else. Actually, what I can do is just get a new layer and then darken the layer beneath. Shit. See how we're left with that little, I mean, I'm not going to keep it like this. See how we're left with that little gem? So that's something you can do. Find wherever you can, but I don't really get what it's made of at the moment. It's a gem of sorts, but I'm also going to start receding some of this curvature into the distance. And yes, you called it. I'm going to bring in a glow. I'm just going to try to choose a good, no, I'm just going to choose a good. Nothing's selected. Maybe normal layer is just the way to go. Just give us a glow. I could also do that invert trick and get that glow back, but don't want to rely too much on tricks that I know from the trade. And what I would love is some cool camera tricks like that trailing effect for highlights. You know, anything you can sneak in that helps promote. I feeling that, you know, it's a glowing character. This is tricky. I don't know how to make it glow without ruining your painting. Actually, I do know how to make it glow. Like this. Alright, and then select, go backward, paste, and then delete. So many tip and a trick for you. You can tell I'm going crazy because I'm starting to do the accents. You learn a many tips and tricks. I think it's an opal element. Okay. And you're framing. A lot of you guys are not really framing right now at all. I'm just going to overdo it. Just so we can crop at the right degree. Shoes. Okay, and then flatten. I'm just gonna give her some breathing room. Just let her breathe, let her air out. And I'm just really tempted to, no. I'm just gonna saturate where we have some shadows. Just the inner parts, you know, the inner part, the thickness of the gem really is getting the saturation. Vibrance on, so it's apparently has made a difference. Okay, so she's starting to look more like a three-dimensional material. And some of these opals here are just shards instead of full pieces, which I don't like. Okay, so we have, I can't do a paste for the before. Before looked very black and white, and after, I'm always doing this on the after. It's just not vibrant enough in my opinion. Before, too much black on the opal. After. Maybe a little less saturation. Now that we have that extra bit of black on. But again, it's supposed to glow, so it's supposed to have that much saturation. It's not just opal that doesn't glow, it's opal that glows. Remember, this is about the glowing aspect. So, I might be running out of time, honestly. There's so many good pieces here. I might continue this way after. So this is a, probably shouldn't have, succulent elemental. Oh, so it's supposed to be those cacti looking. So I would have liked to see more layering, because that's really what makes them look like that. So even these aren't layered, like they're a bit too cautious. The saturation needed for, especially the reference I gave you guys, is much higher. We need much higher saturation. Really what we're dealing with is dodge tool on midtones everywhere. And then redarken the darks so that we have just less black. And then we've got this requirement for saturation if we're talking about a glowing succulent, and then more towards blues and greens than just greens. Yellow looks like green way too much, so more blues and greens I recommend. I don't understand the little cracks because I don't remember seeing that in the succulent that I shared. And don't see that subsurface. You can't have subsurface scattering until you have a core shadow. Write that back to me. You can't have a core shadow until you've respected your light environment and your light source. You decided where it comes from. So we gave his torso a core shadow. Now we can saturate his torso and it'll look like he's glowing. The best way to saturate is just to get your color on a color layer and then just fill that whole area in. Well, still keeping it a little bit dark, and then follow up with some Dodge fill as a pocket. But what's happening here is that we have these cracks there that aren't making much sense. So down here, if we wanted to make this glow, his arm, if you wanted to make it glow, we give ourselves a highlighter, then saturate, which illuminates as well, and then just recede the rest into shadow. But we need that universal, which is his crown, so it'll look like he's glowing from underneath. And we just have a little terminator line right there. And you can just bring in all other kinds of colors. You really don't need to only use these, but this is the pattern. So just to show you a quick idea of what we're missing here. So core light, which results in a core shadow by default because your values were so dark, and then just saturate. And then recede the rest into shadow because we're only seeing some aspect of the translucency glowing inside out. And I recommend a glow that is both in the blues and in the greens, because then that'll look like the photo I shared, which I think inspired this one. If the head isn't important, then we don't need it. It's just barely there. And I like the glow everywhere else. For instance, you have these areas here which don't even need a shadow, they just need the subsurface glow, if you can tell. So you essentially are not sure how to make subsurface happen, and then you went for it. That's not good. What did you have to work with? And then proceed with the shadow. Required, because it's facing away from the, it's not facing away from the light source. The light source coming from here, but I'm just, for the sake of the demonstration, ignoring that. You put the light in the exactly opposite direction. And then these guys, which aren't even layering like a succulent wood, are so far away from the light source. We really need to start, I mean, if they are light sources, maybe we don't need this. But I wouldn't say the glowiest part of the firefly is, you know, the part that is furthest away from the main glow in the stem. Now that we darkened, we're getting pieces and patches, and I recommend like reassessing where the anatomy is, and then just replacing it with a mid-tone that'll cancel out. So lighten, cancel out a lot of that shadow, and then see what you can do from there. Carry on from here. Either give us another main stem of saturate. I mean, this is subsurface scattering needs a light source to work with, or else it's not subsurface. Because where's the light source coming from? But because this is a character that glows in elemental or whatever, we are trying to make it seem like he himself is glowing from a center point. So we don't have those patchy pieces anymore, which means that the whole head could possibly grow. If he's volatile, you're going to have to choose something other than a succulent to make him look volatile. If I was an art director, I would not assign you a succulent as the main flower or plant theme for a volatile creature. And then Control J, darken, and then deleting only around the main light source, which will explain why we see subsurface where we see it. Just being more picky with what gets the light and what doesn't. Okay, lots and lots of pieces. I think I'm gonna stop here because it's 7 p.m. I gotta get going soon. So we have a lot of pieces left to look at. I love this one. I might do, I mean, I'm flying out very soon. I might do another one, but I think I'm gonna do one on my day back. Because I want to give everyone a chance to kind of get a critique. And I can't do how long have I been critiquing for? An hour and 48 minutes, so almost 2 hours. A lot of pieces were submitted. Usually I share them between Tuesday and Thursday, but I only have one day this week. And I'm literally going to be on an airplane. So I did all of these. So these are some nice changes today. This is phenomenal. And what I want to do is everyone correct your pieces, but those who I decide for the final pull will correct their pieces and put them up on our time back. So I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 more pieces to do, which I think I can do in a single class if I get through them quick enough. But for the moment, class is over. Thank you everyone for being a part of this critique hour. I also might do an offline critique sometime before I leave this week for the rest of them, and then put up the poll so that you guys can choose the poll on my way back, because that's so mean for the rest of you to have to wait so long to get yours critiqued. But thank you everyone for posting. If you guys like what you saw today, find me on Reddit. Join us by going to istebrak.com. On the little Reddit icon, click on that to join the Reddit and be part of these challenges. I'll be uploading one as soon as I get back. And as for what the assignment will be for our time back, what would you guys like to see? An eye study, a nose study? What do you guys want to see for our new challenge? So create post. What study themes would you guys like? Would you like to see? Would you like to see for future critique hours? Reply below. Okay, so please reply to this post. I will not pin it because I have some announcements at the top. But Portrait Studio is on sale. Oh my god, the fly is back. I don't know if OBS is capturing. That's not. But Portrait Studio is on sale this Friday, the 9th, at this Thursday, the 8th at midnight, and it'll be all of Friday, 50% off. All my brushes, so go to istebrak.com, go to my store, 50% off and 50% off. So $20 for all my brushes, and each individual one is $12. So if you guys want to purchase these products of mine, go to istebrak.com/store. So awkward. And that's it. Thank you all for watching. If you do have a submission for the study theme, reply here, please, so I can make an appropriate announcement and get a good idea of what you guys want to see. Thank you everyone for posting stuff. I do want to thank you guys again. I love when you guys are involved in critique hours, and I love when you guys are involved in the themes. The themes are the life of our community. They make everything interesting. They give us some color in the face of all those 14-day challenges, which are just as important. But I love how this one feels like it's deep sea, kind of like deep in the sea, or a dark forest with all this like dangerous kind of fauna, or like this poison gas coming up from the moss. Love this one. Needs a bit more vibrance. No, you may not work on it, Tyler. This is the one I'm going to be using when I get back. I love this one. I love the perspective. This one looks great. This one's really similar to the other one, actually, and I love the colors. I like how it glows. Really, really beautiful. It actually looks like gems. You guys did such an amazing job. This one is really cool. It's a Scorched Forest Elemental, which is so fucking cool. Though I do wish I could see some more embers or some hot coal-like outlines of hot heat coming through the pieces of scorched wood and some embers flying around, which is the changes I would have made. This one I don't get. It's supposed to be a root spirit. We're not seeing a lot of roots. So if you're talking about mushrooms and fungi, maybe it could be a fungi spirit. Looks a lot like an android because of how little definition you have there, but I'll try my best to get to these as soon as possible. Again, I'm so sorry I ran out of time. Thank you guys for posting today. I'll see you guys after my vacation, hopefully on the 27th, if not on the 3rd of September. Good luck everyone with your work, and I will post the study theme very, very soon. Bye guys.